Hello everyone. Today I'm going to reorganize and then plant up my flower cart. I'm also going to try to make this little storage corner look a little bit nicer in general. But this flower cart, I think this is either going to be the third or fourth year having it in my garden, and I love it so much. So originally I had just a pile of all of my pots and tools here because I don't have a shed out here. So if I want to keep things outside, it was just all in a pile. And then I thought, there has to be a way that I can make this look a little prettier. So I went online and I found this flower cart. I got it on the site Deer Park Ironworks. They are the manufacturer, but I think it's also sold at like Walmart, Home Depot, Amazon. I don't know if this brown color is still in stock. I'll link it down below. I mean, it wasn't cheap, but I've gotten so much use out of it and I love it so much. So basically what I do is I plant things in front and growing up the roof. So it is a vertical growing space that I have in my garden that I didn't have before. And then I hide all of the less pretty things behind the plants. So I need to figure out, I mean, there's not a ton on here, but I don't know what I have going on, if I need everything that's still over here. Then we're gonna plant up these two planters. I'll show you what's growing over here. And then we will see if this corner looks a little bit prettier by the end of the video. First off, I have this jar, which holds all of my coffee grounds that I put into my compost. So this needs to go back inside. Then I have a bunch of stems that I've saved. I use these as support, so I'm going to see which ones I want to keep, if I want to keep all of them. I also have these metal bars from a broken greenhouse that I use as supports. Looks like I have even more back here. Okay, probably don't need all of these. I have a dahlia label I should probably keep a hold of. I do have this, which is a tin bucket that I turn into a planter by drilling holes in it. I might actually bring this down to the garage deck. I think they'll look pretty there, so I'm going to put this on the side as well. I have 3 of these plant lifts, which I think are really pretty. I used these last year in the herb garden up here just to keep the pots off of my deck. I think I might also use these on the garage deck. I feel like I'm just moving everything down to the garage deck, and I don't know if that's how organization should work. But I do think I have a use for them. So these are also going in the pile by the door. I have these terracotta pots, which I might use for herbs, but I think for now I'm going to move these just inside. I store my terracotta pots underneath my garden table. So I'm going to take these back in there as well. And then what else do I have? I have a stack of these plant lifts. I have about 5 of them, and I use these underneath everything. All of my pots either have wheels or lifts on them on the wooden deck just to keep the wood a little bit more protected. These I will be using up here, so I actually will keep these up here. So my keep here pile will be over here. Not too much left. I have a plastic saucer, which I'll probably use more with houseplants than outside. I have my 2 watering cans. I have my regular one from Home Depot. And then I have the cat one that I got from Gethsemane Garden Center that I don't know if it actually works very well because it's just a little tiny spout and it probably doesn't hold that much water, but maybe I'll use it today when I water in what we're going to plant. I do like it. I want it to be able to be tucked somewhere you can see it. I don't know, I'll figure that out once I get everything planted. So the 2 watering cans will be there. Again, I just kind of come around and grab them when I need them. I have this, which I'm going to put in a planter. It's like a decorative thing that I'll talk a little bit more about. And then I have another planter box. Now, last year I planted a planter box here, and then I planted this one down here. But I realized because I'm planting trailing plants to hide what's under here, this wasn't getting any sun and it got covered once the Silver Fall dichondra reached the bottom. So I don't think I'm going to plant, well, I'm definitely not going to use this here. I don't know if I'm going to use it anywhere in my cart at all. So this might just be stored on there. So this is going to be in my keep up here pile. And now I need to go through these. So these are my dahlias from last year. They are a little bit shorter. They are more easily breakable just because they're hollow inside. But if I do need some short stakes, I'm going to put those over there. This one is probably too short to use, so I'll chop that up for compost. That one works. I'm also seeing if any of them are just so far rotten that I don't want to use them. The metal bars here, I like using these as supports because, I mean, they aren't made of plants, so they're not going to deteriorate. However, what I like about the plant stalks is they have a rough edge. So if I use twine, the twine typically stays in place, whereas this, it slides up and down. So I use these, but I think I'm more often using my old plant stocks, especially when I'm using twine instead of like the coated wire that you wrap around. So I get a lot of use out of these stems. I am going to save these though, because I will find a use. This was Bob, my giant sunflower from last year. I miss him, obviously, but I'm glad a part of him still gets to stay in the garden. So you are staying. These are the sunflower stalks I just cut down that my peas were growing up. And I don't necessarily keep these the length that they are. Another reason I like using the stems is I can chop these to whatever length I want. I'm obviously going to keep them long now because once I cut them, I can't add it back together. So I'm going to keep these long and then see where I need them. I will probably use them to support some of my zinnias, definitely support the sunflowers, and basically anything else that I realized I should have supported and it didn't. So all of these I'm going to keep. I don't know where this came from. It's just a bamboo stake, but I'm going to keep it to use it. And then I guess I'm going to keep everything except this. So that makes that easy. Now this cart is pretty easy to move. It does have those two wheels on the end. I don't move it during the garden season. I will move it a little bit during the winter when I'm storing things, but this is going to stay in place. I had at one point thought maybe I would use this if I had a garden party and I could wheel it around, but my garden's so small I don't really need to wheel things around when people are out here. So I do really like it though. Once I get the plants on, I can still move it, but however there will be trailing plants climbing up it, so probably not going to be very mobile throughout the season. But I am going to kind of move this up as close as I can to the wall and make sure it's as far away from the window as I want. Do I want it any further this way? Maybe a tiny bit. All right, I think this is good. I'm going to put all of my plant stakes on the bottom so that they're not right out in the open. Because Bob is so tall, I might just set him over here next to the plant cages. I'm going to put these plant lifts back there because I do grab for these fairly regularly as well. And I think that might be it for now. So let me go ahead and I'll show you what's currently growing and then we'll get these two containers planted. On the left is a dinner plate dahlia. I had never grown a dinner plate dahlia here, but I think I'm going to really love it. This is the fimbriata dahlia. It's huge. I moved this outside when it was still relatively cold because it wasn't happy anymore in the nursery pot. Well, cold for dahlias. I didn't think it was going to do well, but it is fantastic. She needs a little bit of water, but she already has flower buds on her, which is the earliest I've ever seen buds on dahlias. So I might have some flowers in June this year, which is not normal. Then over here, I have the Thunbergia. This is the Sunny Susan Rose Sensation. So it's a pink color Thunbergia. Last year and the year before, I've grown Morning Glory up the trellis onto the roof. I'll insert some photos of the last couple of years here. Last year was the first year I tried Thunbergia. It was the coconut appeal. I kind of did a white and green theme on this cart last year, and the coconut appeal was perfect. But this year I want to add some more color back in, so I'm adding this pink one, and this is going to be the only one that's growing up the cart because the Morning Glory, I didn't have much luck with it flowering. It grows quickly, but it's not as thick, so it didn't cover it as fully as a Thunbergia did last year, so I think I'm going to be very happy with this switch. So these are in place. Right now the Thunbergia is growing up this plant cage. As it gets up here and a little bit longer, I might have to train it over here. Last year it just grabbed on its own, so we'll see what happens, but then it'll climb up and hopefully cover the roof. And this is what I'm going to be planting with. I have the Supertunia Vista bubblegum, and then I have the Silver Falls dichondra, and that's going to be it as far as those two containers. The very first year I planted this up, the flower cart, I wanted it to look like someone was selling flowers on a sidewalk. So I put in a bunch of different colors. Last year, again, I just did very specific colors and I liked it toned down a bit, but I don't want just white. So that's why I'm going with pink this year. This here is a plastic pot I got from Home Depot a few years ago. It's about 12 inches in diameter. This is last year's soil, so I am going to add in some slow release fertilizer and then some new potting soil. I don't have any compost left right now. I need to get some. So once I get that, I'll probably just do a little layer of compost on the top. But I also need to remove the maple trees that think they're going to grow in a 12-inch pot. So right now I'm just mixing this a little bit to break up the soil. I could add in perlite, but this is a smaller pot and I usually don't have issues with it staying too moist. In fact, I have issues with it drying out. So I'm not going to add in any perlite, but I do want to at least mix up the soil that's in there. First, I'm going to add some biotone, and I'm just going to sprinkle this throughout and mix that in. And then I'm going to add some bone meal, because that's also good for plants, and I basically went in to see whatever I have that is good for plants. So I'm going to put that in there and mix that in. And now we'll get this planted. So I'm going to do one of the Supertunia Vista bubblegum. And I'm going to put that center back. And trust me, this will fill up the pot. And in the front, I'm going to do the Silver Falls dichondra. These are the only 2 plants I'm going to put in here. I think I maybe had 3 last year, and it was just a little too much in terms of how fast it was drying out. So I think I'm going to really like this. And lastly, I'm going to put this in just for decoration. I got this at Gethsemane. What it actually is a post for your hose to guide it around corners. When I picked it up there, I thought it was just a place to put water for pollinators. I don't know why. I thought that's why this existed. And when I checked out, they mentioned something about how it was so cute. And I was like, yes, and great for the pollinators. And they looked at me like I was weird, which was the first sign that I was incorrect about what this was. So I went home and Googled it. And I was like, oh, it's for your hose. But I don't need that. I have my flexible hose, and I don't really have a large enough garden that I need something to help me maneuver my hose around. So this has now just become a little decorative piece in my garden. Now for this flower box on the top, I don't have any soil in it from last year, so I need to put in some fresh potting soil. And I'm also going to add the same 2 things I added to the other pot, some bone meal. And the biotone starter. And we'll mix that in. And now we can add the plants. I'm going to do the exact same mix of plants that I have in this pot down here. So this Silver Falls dichondra is going to go on the end and grow down that way. I'm adding a second one here on the other end. And these will hit the deck, and I will have to trim them. I had to trim them quite a bit last year. And then another Supertunia Vista bubblegum here in the center. The reason I'm doing the same plant in both pots is, one, it just is a little bit less distracting, more easy to look at on the eyes, but also what I really like is when something up here starts to trail down, like for example the Silver Falls dichondra will start to grow here, and then this one will start to grow on the ground. Same thing with the Supertunias, and it'll look just like a giant waterfall of plants where you won't even be able to tell that these are 2 separate containers, which I think looks really cool. So I'm very excited to see this fill in. I'm going to water these. Actually, let me get everything back in place first, and we'll get these watered in, but they will be set up to irrigation. Now I'm going to stick in the emitters for my irrigation, but I do have to make a little change. So last year, this pot and this pot were not set up on drip, and I did have to make sure I watered them every day since they are on the smaller side, and this deck gets the west-facing, very hot sun. But now, because I'm growing fewer herbs, I can stick this here and then this up here. Now, I think you can notice that this is now hanging in the walkway, and I have already tripped over it once. I do need to lengthen this, so I will add probably onto here. It's not set up yet, so that's okay. So I will add onto here just a little bit of length. Let me stick this down here. So it'll lay on the ground and then come up and connect right there. But I am very excited. Actually, let me put this more towards the middle so it waters the whole box. And then I think I'm actually going to tuck it under here so it's even more hidden. Put it between the pots. This one will go in here, and then I'll connect them right there. Woo! I'm so excited for this to come together. I think this looks much nicer now, right? I cannot wait for all these to be completely covering the cart. I will obviously keep you updated on how this grows throughout the season. And I don't actually have that much more to plant. I'll show you what I have left. I do think I'm going to add one more container, but I will be able to set that up to irrigation. what I have left here are 3 dahlias. One of them is dinner plate. I think these 2 are decorative. I have 4 nursery pots of zinnia seedlings. Those will be transferred into this middle 30-gallon grow bag once the poppies are done blooming. Well, they have to start first, but once they're done blooming, I'm going to remove them, replace them with zinnias. I have some tomato plants that I'm going to try to fit somewhere on the garage deck, and then another decorative dahlia there. I don't have containers currently for the dahlias, and I don't want to put them each in their own because that just makes it harder to water. So these are my thoughts. Because this walkway is pretty open, I can fit what I think I'm going to get is a container, a rectangular planter here, and I'm going to put in at least 3 of the dahlias, if not all 4 of them. And I do have those 2 emitters right there. They will go into the container, and then literally everything is set up on irrigation. So I don't have to leave anything to the side for our cat sitters to water when I'm out. I'll obviously still come up daily and check on my plants, but I won't have to worry about watering anything, which is really nice. So that's going to be everything for this video. I am resisting the urge to put plants here because I know it will be covered, and I don't need to put plants somewhere where I'm just going to have to pull them or move them later. But we are getting closer to the end of planting. I may still have a lot of planting to do, but it's just been so delayed with the cool weather. I'm usually not still putting things into my garden, I feel like, in middle of June. But soon we're gonna switch to the management and the keeping my garden alive phase of the season. So let me know if you have any questions. I will see if this cart is still available and link any options down below. I think there's also a black option that I'm pretty sure is the one that's easier to find. But let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.